Hello and welcome back to the Gritty Hour. I have a very special guest tonight, Chester L. Richards, who's written the second of two books. This one is called The Trek Continues, More Memories of a Rocket Scientist. So welcome to the Gritty Hour. Chet, can I call you Chet?
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's a good name. Well, hi, Tom. It's good to be here.
Yes, it's a pleasure to have you on. So technically you are a rocket scientist, so tell me
More than technically, that's my main career.
okay, so literally then.
Literally, yeah.
Yes, tell me about that.
Uh, well, when I was a little kid, I was, this is back in the 1950s, I was a voracious reader of science fiction. I read everything that came through the door at the public library. And that naturally, I was future oriented and space oriented and all the rest of that good stuff. So naturally, I had to go to college and study engineering and physics. So I went to the School of Engineering and they had an entrance exam and I was examed out. I didn't want to take any more exams. So I walked across the street and the physics department didn't have an enrollment exam. So I signed up as a physics major and that's what my degrees are in. As a professional, I'm basically a physics engineer.
I see. Yeah.
So I'm involved in applying physics to various engineering problems.
Right. And earlier in your writing career, you actually wrote or co-wrote one of the episodes for the original Star Trek.
Yes, I did.
Tell me about that.
What was going on there was I was a graduate student in physics, or in engineering. I'd switched over from physics to engineering at that point. And one of my schoolmates, a lady named Judy Burns, a very, very talented lady, as we'll discuss a little bit later, hopefully. She was infatuated with Leonard Nimoy. So she had wanted to meet him and get to know Leonard Nimoy. But she figured that the way to do that was to write and sell a script for the Star Trek series. So this was probably about 1907. Well, it'd be about 1967, probably, somewhere in that time frame. Anyway, so that was during the period of the second season, and everybody was anticipating a third season for Star Trek. But Star Trek went off the air at that point. And Judy got together with a bunch of other very notable people, and they lobbied to get the show back on the air. And that had never been done in the history of television, by the way. Once a show was canceled, it was canceled. But they succeeded in getting Star Trek back on the air. Boy, the crowds that they amassed to lobby, shall we say, the studios at the entrance to the studios and things of that sort certainly got the attention of the executives. So they put the show back on the air.
Early Trekkies, I guess, right?
The early Trekkies, yeah. And so Judy was looking around for story ideas, and I wasn't paying any attention to television at that time, being a graduate student. Judy says, "You got to see this show. This is right up your alley, Chet." So she sat me down and played a bunch of tapes that she had made of the Star Trek episodes. So I had it in my head that there was, okay, this is an interesting show. It's similar to what I had read in the 50s and the 60s, but it was different. It had a different flavor to it, and I rather enjoyed it. So I went to sleep one night, and I had a dream. And the dream was I found myself on the bridge of the Starship Enterprise. And I was just observing what was going on. I wasn't participating. I was just watching what was going on. And there was a ghost that came through the wall, and everybody got shook up by this ghost that was wandering around, scaring the hell out of everybody. So that was my dream. And I woke up, and I grabbed a pad of paper, and I wrote down the synopsis of the dream. And I said, I'll call Judy in the morning and see if she's interested in this idea. And I went back to sleep. So I called Judy in the morning and she said, "Oh, that's a great idea." She says, "Nobody's done anything like that. So why don't we collaborate and do a script together?" Which is what we did.
Mm.
Now, she was taking a class in script writing at the time from a guy named Bob Duncan. Bob Duncan was an old pro, done a whole bunch of television, had published many novels and movie scripts and things of that sort. So he was enormously gifted, and I got invited to sit in on the classes that Judy was taking from him. So I didn't have to do any of the work, but I got all the pleasure of this. He really was a master storyteller, and watching this guy at work and how he developed scenes and things of that sort. So after the course was finished, Bob had a party at his house. And I was talking with him, and he was interested in me because he never got people like engineers or physicists taking script writing classes. He just got literary types.
Hmm.
So we were having a very nice chat, and Judy came over and joined us. And Bob says, "You know, you guys wrote that really interesting script episode for Star Trek as a speculative script. Whatever happened to that?" And Judy told him, "Well, the show went off the air and now it's back on the air and they have a whole new crew and everything." So Bob says, "Well, who's the producer on the show, the new producer?" And Judy says, "Well, it's some guy named Fred Freiberger is taking over as producer of Star Trek." And Bob just lit up. It's hard to show his expression, but his face just lit up. And he says, "Oh," he says, "Freddie and I we've done so many things together." He says, "Yeah, we're old friends." He says, "I'll give Freddie a call in the morning." So Bob did. He called Fred Freiberger in the morning and got him to read the script. And the next thing you know, we get an invite to go up to Paramount Studios and meet with the producers and senior staff of Star Trek, which we did. And so we were in Fred Freiberger's office, and you probably have this movie picture in your head of big luxurious office. Well, it was just a cubby hole of an office with a single small window, and Fred had a desk, and he had a sofa sitting in front of the desk, and Judy and I sat down on the sofa, and the story editor came in and sat with the two of us. So we were three sitting on the sofa. And Bob Justman, who is the associate producer and the real spark plug behind the whole the whole three seasons, as far as I can tell. Anyway, Bob Justman comes in and he starts wandering up and down with the notes that he had made about the script that we had written. And he says, "First of all, let me start," he said, "by saying that we like your script, we're going to buy it." And of course, that was a wonderful experience that Judy and I were thrilled at that. But then Bobby Justman started to say, "Well, there's a few minor changes we need to." And by the time he got through with all the minor changes, he'd completely trashed the story, the script, everything.
You didn't recognize it anymore, right?
We were able to see some of the elements being the same, but basically it was a whole new story.
Mm-hmm.
So great, fine. We agree to everything. That sounds like really good ideas. That was our response to that. And then they turned the screw or turned the knife in our belly. He says, "Well, now this meeting was on a Friday." And they said, "Well, we're under a really tight schedule here. We need your script revisions by first thing next Friday." So we had a week to do the whole new show, almost literally from scratch. We were able to save quite a few elements, but basically we had to write a completely new Star Trek script, Star Trek story and script. And so we drove back to Orange County where we were living, and I think we were probably up until 1 or 2 o'clock in the morning that night,
Mm,
basically creating a whole new story.
wow.
And that the story that we created really became the foundation for what went on the air. There were some additions that we put in over the course of the several days to the next Friday. But Thursday night we started typing. We had borrowed the one and only word processor that the university had, and, and we had an arrangement with them that we could work overnight at the using that word processor. It was give you a vintage of that. It was a vacuum tube computer feeding us electric typewriter.
Wow. Hmm.
So that was their word processor.
Wow. Yeah.
And we had to buy a special tape because the university would not loan us a tape. So we had to invest in the tape, which was expensive, by the way. So that we typed all night. And when the sun was coming up over the horizon in the morning, you could see out the window. That's when I typed the last page.
Wow.
And we got in the car and we drove up to Paramount. And they liked what we had done and they put it in production. And after that, there were minor modifications. But basically, the story went on the air pretty much the way we had written it.
And the name of that episode was Tholian Web. Am I saying that
The
properly?
the Tholian Web, yes,
Yeah.
that's right.
Mm.
And it was a very successful show. It's considered one of the top 10 of
Hmm.
all of the early Star Treks. And it did win an Emmy for special effects. And it was the script itself. I walked into the Smithsonian American History Museum in Washington one day, and they had a Star Trek exhibit. It was the first exhibit that they had when you walked up the stairs. And in the middle of that exhibit was our script, the Tholian Web.
Wow. That must have been a,
What a thrill.
a phenomenal
The
feeling for you.
front center on the first exhibit in the Smithsonian.
Wow. Good for you. Congratulations.
Yeah, so we had a very successful, and by the way, Judy did become very good friends with Leonard Nimoy.
Hmm.
And when
Okay.
Judy moved to from Star Trek, she moved to Mission Impossible, became a scriptwriter there. And when Star Trek went off the air, Judy got Leonard Nimoy the job uh, on Mission Impossible. So she moved him up from Star Trek to Mission Impossible,
Interesting.
and he had a very successful career after that. Judy's career, she became a star in Hollywood as a writer and producer. Um, she was story editor on most of the early Star Trek movies.
Uh,
Did a major rewrite on Wrath of Khan, however you pronounce it, um, and then continued to be story editor and producer of a number of very successful shows. Her last creation, and it was her last show before she retired. She created a show you probably are familiar with. It's called MacGyver.
yeah.
So that was Judy's creation. So that'll give you some sense of the magnitude of talent that I was associated with
Right.
in
And
working with Judy
it
on
all
that
point
first.
it
Yeah,
all pointed back to that episode, the Tholian
yeah.
Web, right? Interesting. Very interesting story. I have to ask, well, your calling was aerodynamics or engineering or
Yeah, well, physics and engineering both.
yeah. But I have to ask, did you ever get to meet Gene Roddenberry?
Uh, yeah, one day we were told Judy and I were going through a conference with some people, and they said, "Follow me," and so we followed somebody, one of the secretaries, and there was a narrow stairway, and we were directed to go up the stairway and introduce ourselves, and so that's what we did.
Hmm.
We went up. At the top of the stairway was Gene Roddenberry's office, and we got to meet him. We talked for 15 minutes or 20 minutes, something like that. He just wanted to look us over and see who we were.
Right. Just
Um,
he's definitely was a man ahead of his time for sure.
yeah, he was. It was an
Yeah.
interesting conversation, but
Mm.
it was not a real big, oh, let's be friends forever kind of thing. It was just he wanted to see who these kids were
Mm.
because Judy was straight out of school and I was still a student in school.
Wow.
And and it was the beginning of a very interesting experience for both of us, obviously.
Yeah, and
But he was a very nice guy. I
yeah,
really enjoyed the chat that I had with him.
yeah. And it's the Star Trek, whatever they call that. It's still going, right? They're still making
Oh,
here and there.
yeah, there's a lot of controversy about this latest episode,
And
but we won't get into that.
well, I saw the original Star Trek in reruns, just to let
Yeah.
you know. But and I was a big fan. I'm sure I saw that episode. I can't place my finger on it right now, but I'm sure I seen it. I think I seen them all. But
Well, as I say, it was a very highly rated
yeah,
episode.
yeah,
Most of the fans consider it to be in the top 10 of the original.
wow,
I don't think it's as good as some of the other episodes
yeah,
uh, from the original series, but I have my personal favorites. But um, let me tell you about the significance of Star Trek. Star Trek, we didn't, when we were working on it, it was just a TV show. We were just having some fun doing TV, making some money. By the way, made pretty good money with that script. Um, Paid for a couple of years of graduate school. That's
oh,
how
good for you.
good the
Yeah,
money was. Um, but it was a TV show, and nobody thought it was anything more than that.
mm,
It was just, the actors were making a living, the producers were making a living, everybody was just making a living doing a TV show. What nobody realized is that we changed the world.
yeah, yeah,
Star Trek is literally changed history. Um, to give you, and it wasn't Star Trek per se, it was the fans. It
mm,
was the collective of followers of Star Trek who captured the dream of Star Trek and pushed the country in a direction it was not intending to go. If you remember the moon program, we were had purchased rockets and had trained astronauts for several more moon landings. We did, I think, 3 or 4 more moon landings, and then the program was canceled.
yeah. The Apollo program.
Yeah, and it was
Yeah,
canceled with the rockets sitting there waiting to be flown.
mm,
I mean, it was just the country, the political establishment in the country was no longer interested in all this space stuff. They did have some stuff for the Air Force, and they put in a space lab, a Skylab. They put that in orbit. But basically, there was no real interest in the political establishment for space at that
yeah.
point.
There's a nod to that. Malaise, if you want to call it malaise, in that Tom Hanks movie, where people, were sort of kind of losing interest in the Apollo program until one mission
Until
got,
Apollo 13, yeah.
yeah, until it got in trouble. Yeah.
Right, which
So,
was incredibly that was a miracle.
yeah,
Honest to God, that shows creative human beings figuring themselves out of an absolutely desperate situation.
yeah,
Really remarkable movie, and Tom Hanks did that movie perfectly. Couldn't have done it better.
yeah.
By the way, they did film that movie in zero gravity. They had an airplane that they flew that they'd go through these gyrations where they'd cut off the gravity for some period of time, 30 seconds at a time, something like
Mm,
that.
interesting.
So that's real zero gravity in that movie.
Well,
Um,
it must give you a definite sense of pride to have put your fingerprint on that, on part of that culture, though.
oh
That's
yeah, and
grown
that's
into what it's.
basically what I was going to say was,
Yeah,
it wasn't Judy and myself, although Judy had a lot more to do with Star Trek after that, but it was the fans. And what the fans did was they basically changed the political culture in the United States and forced attention back on manned space flight.
right.
If it hadn't been for the Star Trek fans, you know, maybe the Russians would have taken over the lead. I don't know. It's hard
Yeah.
to say.
Well, it did come out at
But
the
it
right
was the it
time.
was the
Yeah,
American and worldwide Star Trek fans that changed the world.
right.
And I have to tip my hat to those guys,
Yeah.
really and truly.
And as
Uh,
you alluded to, after Apollo, they did the Skylab, but there was a long gap between Apollo and the shuttle missions.
Well, yeah, they started the shuttle a few years after Skylab.
Yeah.
Uh, and it's a miracle that shuttle ever flew, that it was ever able to fly. I look at it from an engineer's perspective, of course.
Yeah.
And the problem with the shuttle was that it had to do everything for everybody. So it was a beast designed by committee. And designed by committee produces a horse that looks like a camel. And that was the shuttle. Um, I was very privileged in the course of my career for several years to work with the people that put us on the moon and who were instrumental in the development of the space shuttle.
Yeah.
Um,
It was
these guys,
a lot of the same talent.
yeah,
Yeah.
well, the people I worked with were rocket engineer specialists. That they were the country's best rocket engineer guys, um, rocket engine designers. So these are the guys that did the main engines for the for the moon lander, for
Mm.
the Apollo rocket. Um, and one of my friends, Tom Coltis, in particular, got to be very close to him. He was not only instrumental in getting us to the moon, but also he was the chief architect for the engines on the space shuttle, for the liquid fuel engines on the space shuttle.
Mm.
So I got to know these people, as friends, not just characters in a textbook someplace,
Sure,
or
sure.
names in a textbook. These are real people that I worked with for a number of years. And Tom Coltis basically gave me private tutoring in rocket engines and in jet engines. So you imagine the privilege that I had. Tom Coltis at the time was probably the best rocket engine designer in the world. He was a grandmaster, and I had him as private tutor.
Wow. That is fortunate, sure.
Yeah.
I have to ask what your professional opinion is on SpaceX and what they're attempting to do now.
100% positive,
Hmm.
but probably beyond that a little bit. The last position I had, I was working at Raytheon in their space division. And Elon Musk, this was fairly early in the game when SpaceX had only been, I think they'd had one, maybe two successful rocket flights, something like that. But it
Right.
was really early in the game. And the management at Raytheon was really interested in SpaceX. And so they invited Elon Musk to give a briefing. So this was held in the event center at Raytheon. And there was, a pretty good crowd. In the front row, of course, was all executives, high level engineers and executives. And Elon Musk got up on stage and he told how he organized his company. And it was a really interesting organization. Basically, what he did when he hired somebody, he gave them a credit card for the company. And he gave them an assignment, put them under a particular manager. The guy was given an assignment to go out and do something, and he had a credit card to finance that, and he had to produce.
Right.
Now, of course, if he abused the credit card, he'd be fired, and that would be the end of him in the industry. But um, that's not the way people reacted to the credit card. Um, if he ran out of money, his boss had a bigger credit card.
Mm.
So, but the thing is, whoever it was that got the assignment had to produce the result. He had complete freedom to do the job the way he felt was appropriate, and that went all the way up through the hierarchy, all the way up to Musk himself.
Right.
That's the way everybody in the organization worked. Well, the interesting thing about that is that the Raytheon executives had all grown up in the defense industry and they knew how to work with the government, but they had absolutely no idea what Elon Musk was talking about. The questions that came from the executives and the top engineering staff, totally missed the point of what Elon was talking about as to how he managed that company.
Mm.
And I understood the disconnect because what you had was a collision of cultures that was profound. Um, but my respect for Elon went absolutely through the roof when I saw both how he had structured his company and how he managed to deal with the disconnect with the questions that were coming up from the executives at Raytheon.
Mm.
It was really a profound experience.
Did
Now,
they
obviously, he knew what he was doing because he's had an enormous success since that time.
right? Did he answer the questions in real time right in that arena at Raytheon?
Yep,
They asked him
standing
right.
on the stage answering the questions.
And he was.
And not one of the executives had a clue what he was talking about.
Did you?
Yeah, I knew because I was down doing the creative stuff,
Uh-huh.
and you don't do creative stuff by checking off boxes in a some kind of a managerial scheme.
Right.
You do creative stuff by creating.
Yeah.
You basically walk away from the system and do it outside the system and come back in with a finished product. So I was very, very, I was operating inside of Raytheon the way SpaceX people were working inside of SpaceX,
Mm.
but only my most immediate manager knew that I was working outside the system that way.
Mm.
And I was very successful. I got a whole bunch of patents out of that. Um, and then, by the way, that I was very fortunate in the beginning of my career, just after I got my bachelor's in physics, to get recruited into a group of professional inventors. So I was actually trained in the art of invention. It was extraordinary that I had that opportunity. And
Sure.
so I've got lots and lots of inventions to my credit.
And somewhere along the line, you thought you better put pen to paper on your story because it's a story people are gonna want to know, right?
Yeah, well, there's a lot that led up to that. I started doing some adventure travel um, back in the early 70s,
Hmm.
gotten pretty heavily involved with whitewater river running and things of that sort, which we can talk a bit about.
Sure.
Um, so I kept a journal, started keeping a journal. And what I found was that people were interested in what I was writing in my journal. So I got to the point where people were demanding that I would read the day's events around the campfire in the evening.
Hmm.
And that continued for best part of a decade when I was involved in that kind of activity. So I got to be a storyteller by basically writing a story a day
Right.
and telling the story around the campfire, the day's events. But I had to be accurate and honest because I was telling things where the people that were sitting next to me had been there and seen it and done that. They'd been in the middle of all of this.
Right.
So I was describing the common experience that everybody was having. So I got to be a bit of a storyteller as a result of that.
Yeah.
That was completely independent of the Star Trek, of course. Um, and then I got married and I drifted away from campfires and things like that. And I was happily married for 20 years.
Hmm.
And then my wife died
Oh,
very suddenly. Her heart failed.
I'm sorry.
And I was just devastated. I don't know. Anybody who's been through an experience like that understands
Mm.
you can't put that experience into words at all.
Absolutely. Yeah.
And if you haven't had that experience, there's no description that will tell you what that's like. So I was in hell.
Mm.
That's the best way to describe what the experience was. So when I was writing the eulogy for the funeral mass, it lifted my spirits a little bit to put some words on paper,
Mm.
or actually on the computer screen. But to give you the sense of how bad it was, I couldn't stay in the house. I actually, rather than stay in the house and mope around, I went to work. I drove to work. And people at work, knowing what had happened were astonished to see me. They couldn't understand how I could be at work under those circumstances. But I needed the people. I needed my friends. I needed my colleagues. I needed the human touch.
Right.
And that's where I started writing the eulogy. Well, I didn't get any other work done, but I did get that done.
Right. So it
And
proved
then
that's
after
therapeutic for
after
you.
the funeral and everything, I got to thinking about that, and I realized that it actually helped my spirit to do some writing. So I just decided to write this some of my experiences. And now my wife Sarah knew a lot of the stories, and I had done some story writing that she was familiar with, and she very much enjoyed my writing style. So
Hmm.
I started writing stories, just drawing from partly from my journals that I had kept in travels, and partly I did it because I have good memories. I have a visual memory and pretty complete memory of a very interesting life. So I just started writing about the people that I knew, my colleagues at work that I thought were a little bit unusual and worth talking about, and so on. And each story was like a step that I climbed back into sanity.
Hmm.
And and then what happened was I had a whole bunch of these stories, and I ran into an editor at a party, a lady named Dinah, and she said, "Send me some stories. I want to read them," and which I did. And the rest became history. We basically became associates and started working on the books together.
Right. And you did come out, I don't know how long ago it was, but the first of these two books was From the Potato to Star Trek. What is it? The Adventures of a Rocket Scientist?
Yeah, Memoirs of a Rocket Scientist.
Memoirs, excuse me, of the Rocket Scientist.
Yeah.
Do you mind if,
Well,
while we talk about that, do you mind if I share your website while we
oh,
talk?
no, go ahead.
I
Please
pre
do.
I appreciate that because first of all, I wanna, because we're on YouTube as well as Spotify and all the other
Mhm.
audio places. I want people to see the books, So we'll start with your website, which I don't know if you can see that on your end.
No, it comes out black.
Uh, Still, you don't see it at all now?
No.
Interesting. Let me start that again then.
Yeah, it says you're going to screen share.
I am screen sharing, yes, but I don't know why you can't see it. Hold on. No, my apologies for that. How about now? Can you see it now?
No.
Interesting.
Yeah.
I don't know if the end user will be able to see this as well. I can see it on my screen. Um, but anyway, the first book is called From the Potato to Star Trek. I'm wondering what the potato
Oh,
was.
there. Now I see it.
Oh,
Now
you
I
see it now? Good.
Yeah.
Okay. Um, I'm wondering what the potato was. Tell
Well,
us
I
a
got to
little bit
tell
about
you, I was going to. Everybody wants to know about the potato,
that.
but my editor and publisher Ina says don't tell anybody about the potato.
Okay, we
Use
don't
that
need
as
to
a
talk about
use that as a come on that people have to read the book to find out what the potato is. What I can say
it.
about the potato is it's something that happened when I was a teenager, and it was a very dangerous encounter. Um, literally have physical scars from it.
Ah,
I have scars on my arms and one scar on my face as a result
hmm,
of my encounter with the potato. So
okay.
if you want a really scary story, read the book and find out about the potato.
It was definitely a hot potato, right?
It was a very hot potato.
So tell us a little bit about the first book before we get to the new book, which is sort of a part two to this book, yes?
Well, the book gave me a chance to write about the Star Trek experience.
Hmm.
So the first section of the book goes into detail as to how the whole episode got established and what it's like to write and how the story came together
Hmm.
and all the elements of the story, and then what it was like to be dealing with the people at the Star Trek offices. And so that's kind of an opening sequence in the book.
Hmm.
The rest of the book is drawn from various adventures that I've had over the years and various people that I've run into over the years. Some very, very interesting people. I mentioned Tom Coltis, the rocket guy. He's in the book, and he's an American hero. And I explain in the book exactly why that is the case. But he single-handedly saved the Apollo program from disaster. So I talk about that particular episode. And I talk about my river experiences. I've run rivers from Alaska all the way across to Africa. And I've rowed a boat through the Grand Canyon and kayaked some pretty wild rivers and so on. So I've got stories about the excursion in Africa and what that was like. I went to Africa when they were having a civil war, by the way.
Ah,
It was, that was an interesting experience, but we were mostly in the country, so we didn't get too bothered by the Civil War.
mm,
But there were a couple of life-threatening situations there.
wow.
Um, and I was very, very glad to get out of that place. Um, so I've got stories about that. Just stories about my career, what it's like to work in the aerospace industry,
Hmm.
and the people that I've met in there. Stories about graduate school and one of my professors there, and I basically told a story that he told me about his experience in the Second World War, and what an important experience that turned out to be.
Hmm.
So I've got a lot of interesting stories, but the main thing is every story is independent. You can read the stories in any sequence that you want. They all stand alone, and they're all intended to entertain.
So
They're
I'm
you
sorry, Chet, your new book, The Trek Continues, more memoirs of a rocket from a rocket scientist.
Well, obviously I had more stories to
Well, I
write.
was going to say, you don't necessarily, I highly suggest people do, but you don't necessarily have to have the first book read
No,
before you.
as I say, the stories are completely independent.
Right.
You can
Okay.
read them in any order. In fact, you just pick up the book in the middle and start reading.
Mm, interesting. Well, you've had an interesting life, and uh, your writing is, and you did allude to that even back when you were in college. You woke up in the middle of the night and wrote your dream down, so you must have had that habit all along. Of,
Well, yeah,
you
it's
know.
it's really, it's really funny. I never thought of myself as a writer. I'll give you an example. Um, when I started at the university, I went to UC Berkeley, by the way.
Hmm.
Um, when I started at the university, I immediately they had you write an essay when you first got in, and I flunked the essay. So basically, I didn't know how to write a coherent sentence. They
Yeah.
put me in dumbhead English to teach me how to write basic English, where to put a period, where to put a comma, simple things like that. I had managed to skate all the way through elementary and high school by faking a knowledge of English
Mm.
or how to write.
Well, you've
I
come
could
a
read
long
like a
way. You're a published author
I
now.
could read, yeah, I could read like a bandit, but I couldn't write worth beans.
Mm.
So I basically learned the fundamentals of grammar in bonehead English
Mm.
when I was a freshman in college.
Yeah.
So, I mean, starting out that way, you never expect to become a writer. That's the last thing that you expect to have, and to have some success as a writer as well.
Yeah.
So, the writing that I've been able to do, and the fact that people find my stories entertaining, is very gratifying. But it's also a big surprise.
Yeah.
It really is.
Well, book one was popular, and now you have the second part of that. Although, like you said, you can read either one or from wherever in each book you want
Right,
to
and
start.
hopefully there will be a third.
Yeah, very good.
So I've been
So
working on that.
obviously, you've grown to love writing.
Uh, It's very interesting. I find writing to be an entertainment.
Hmm.
I find it to sit down and let the words flow to be an entertainment, and a very gratifying one as well. I love playing with words.
Right.
I love just seeing how the word combinations go together.
And do you still find it therapeutic as well?
Well, yeah, it's therapeutic, but obviously I'm over the worst of it.
Hmm.
Um, my wife Sarah is still in the house, and an important thing, even though it's been 20 years since she passed away.
Right.
Um, it's yeah, as a matter of fact, it's almost exactly 20 years now.
Wow.
I think it was May of 2006.
Mm.
So she was absolutely a remarkable woman. I mean, when she said she liked my stories, she did have a master's in English literature, so she knew something about what she was talking about. Um, she also had a master's in music and a master's in psychology. So yeah,
And
she
being
was
your
very
wife, she wouldn't pull any punches if she didn't think it was good, right?
no,
Yeah.
she was a licensed psychotherapist on top of all of
No,
that.
well, there you go. Okay.
So, I had to live with a psychotherapist.
Probably a
You
good
can't,
good
you
combo
listen,
though.
you can't pull anything off on a person like that. What a gifted lady she was.
Yeah.
By the way, she was a trained opera singer and she sang with the Seattle Opera.
Wow.
So, yeah,
Talented lady, sure.
yeah, she was quite something.
Do you have
Uh,
these illustrations in the book that we're looking at now?
Pardon?
Do you have,
These are all, yeah, most of them are my photos. That's me
uh-huh.
at Mui International Airport, such as it was
Wow.
in Ethiopia. And
Yeah.
okay, this is a rocket engine that Tom Coltis designed.
Oh,
He was the master of that.
yeah.
That's my grandmother.
For those of us who, for those of you, excuse me, that aren't listening, that aren't on YouTube, we're what we're
There's Sarah.
okay, and we're looking at ChesterLRichards.com. There'll be a link in the show notes if you want to go on YouTube and see what we're looking at. These photos are in the book as well.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay. So this is a couple of natives that I ran into in Ethiopia,
Hmm.
and that's a stock photo.
Okay.
But this is the real thing.
Mm.
This is on the Awash River in Ethiopia. Awash, by the way, for people who are into anthropology, Awash is where the hominid Lucy was found.
Mm.
So we were right in that area
Okay.
where Johansen did the discovery of Lucy.
Yes. Yes. So you do you like you obviously you like traveling as well.
Well, I did for about 10 years, or
Hmm.
10 or 12 years.
Hmm.
I did a lot of exotic traveling.
Now, were you employed at Raytheon while you were doing this,
Oh,
or?
no, no. Raytheon was at the end of my career.
Oh, I understand. Oh, I understand. Okay. All right.
Yeah, I spent 14 years at Raytheon as an engineering fellow there.
Hmm.
And basically, as a fellow, I pretty much had freedom to do what I wanted.
Hmm. So obviously you fall in love with writing, and
Mhm.
the first book was successful, and now you have this brand new book. It's only been out a couple of months, right?
It was published
Towards the end of
at the end of
25.
the summer. I think it was August or September when it came out, something like that.
Okay, and has it been received?
Apparently, it's pretty well. I'm not getting followers on Amazon. I don't see any notice there, but people who've read the book and the reviewers that have reviewed the book, the reviews have been 100%.
Okay.
Really, really excellent reviews.
You mentioned Amazon. I happen to have your author's page on Amazon here, which
Yeah.
also has the book.
So the
Well,
first one got a lot of reviews,
yeah, this is
um, and they're all excellent reviews, as you can see.
yeah, the one we're looking at now is From the Potato to Star Trek and Beyond: Memoirs of a Rocket Scientist Beyond the Great Potato Book 1. It's an engaging title for a book. Yeah. And obviously that was well received, and now we have The Trek Continues, more
Yeah.
memoirs of a rocket scientist. I have to ask you, it's been bugging me. How did you like Star Trek: The Next Generation?
Oh, I really enjoyed the what what followed on.
Hmm.
Um, I'm pretty much a fan of the actors that were on running that show as well. And I followed Star Trek for a number of years. Eventually, I drifted away from it, of course.
Mm,
I did see a couple of the most recent movies, and I enjoyed those.
yeah.
But you know, Star Trek. Obviously, I've gone in different directions than Star Trek, and Star Trek's in real trouble, as you probably have been discovering with their Star Trek Star Academy episodes.
Yeah, they're not endearing to the
They're
Trekkies.
not enduring to the fans. Let me
Yeah,
put it that way. I haven't
yeah,
seen those episodes,
yeah.
so I have no comment about them. But I just noticed what the fandom, the reaction of the fandom is,
But
and it's
they
rather
had a
interesting.
really a long running the franchise had a long running series of movies with the original cast with
They did,
William
and
Shatner
as I
and
say, Judy was very intimately involved in those movies.
mhm,
She was story editor for those movies.
yeah. But when the Next Generation came out, it was sort of like a whole. It was sort of a break from. I mean, there was a nod to the original, but it was sort of a break from the original franchise.
Yeah, and I don't know how much Judy was involved in those. She was busy doing other shows as well,
Hmm.
and I think she started to become a producer at that point. And there were two or three series that she was producer on.
I remember because I think I heard somewhere a lot of the people like the original Star Trek people loved, and then when the Next Generation came out, it started to make when you went back to the original Star Trek, it started to look dated, which it didn't before the Next Generation. You know what I mean?
Well, yeah, you know, I mean, when you're pioneering something, you're getting something started, but
Yeah.
there's a huge amount of talent that came afterwards.
Hmm.
In the case of Star Trek, there's really outstanding writers. I mean, you know, how many books have been published under the Star Trek titles?
Sure.
And people have taken, well, for example, the Tholians became major characters in a number of books that other writers produced.
Hmm.
The Tholian Web became a fixture in a number of books that were produced.
Did you come up with that name?
Yeah, I
Oh.
came up with the name.
Mm.
Um, the story on that is that I knew a volcanologist, a guy who studies volcanoes. His name was Jack Green. And there was an archaeologist named Marinados, who was a very prominent Greek archaeologist. And he had this idea that Atlantis was a real place, that it really existed. And he identified that as possibly the island of what the Greeks called Thera. It's now called Santorini. So he organized an expedition to go to Santorini, and they did in fact find uh, a town on Santorini, which also demonstrated that Atlantis really did exist. Well, Jack Green was a geologist on that expedition, and Jack was on one of the side islands near Santorini, and he discovered a broken, hidden Tholos tomb. It was completely intact with its treasures. And that would have been a first-rate archaeological discovery, except that Marinados' discovery was even more important and took the spotlight away from what Jack Green had discovered.
Mm.
But in honor of Jack Green and his discovery of a Tholos, I came up with the title The Tholian Web.
Ah, I see. Okay.
It's
Yeah.
just, you know, it was in honor of a friend.
Now, did you like the one you dreamed or the synopsis you dreamed better than what became what came to fruition as a TV episode?
Well, both of them were children.
Uh-huh.
Which child do you prefer?
Huh. Yeah.
They're completely different stories with a similar theme.
Yeah.
In the
So,
first version, um, we Judy made the decision that the ghost was going to be the Spock character, that we were going to kill him off and turn him into a ghost. Oh, and then recover him, of course. So, basically, I had to come up with the science of turning somebody into a ghost and then turning him back into a real person again,
hmm.
which we figured out. But the big objection that Bob Justman had was he didn't want um, the Spock character to be the ghost. He wanted Captain Kirk to be the ghost.
Oh, interesting.
So the reason that we had to write a completely new story was we had a completely different ghost. And all of the motivations and everything that go along with that get completely flipped.
Hmm.
So so that's the reason that we went having to take some of the original elements and write a whole new story. But there was much more to it than that, because during that rewrite is when we came up with the idea of the Tholian Web, the web that envelops the ships and is a major hazard. And so there were a whole bunch of new elements to the second story that were not in the first story. It really was a completely new story.
Hmm.
The Tholian Web was what got the attention of the Emmy people, and that's what got the special effects. Was Mike Miner did that as a stop action animation, and I describe it in the book as a little bit of what he did there, and was a remarkable piece of craft, and it won him a number of awards, and he became a major art director in Hollywood as a result of doing that particular episode.
Mm.
So kudos to Mike Miner as well.
Well, for the time that show was on the air, they were well ahead of their time in terms of special effects.
Oh, they really were, and a lot of that had to do with Mike Miner.
Hmm.
He did so much of that. Um, and I think, and of course, he became the art directors for the movies as well.
Hmm.
So, the good stuff in the movies, that's Mike Miner.
I remember a while ago seeing a video on YouTube which talked about, well, it was focused on Gene Roddenberry, but it was talking about the things that were on that show that have come to be, that were sort of um, space age stuff then that are sort of commonplace now. I guess one of the things was the little I'm not so well versed in this. Those little things where you talk to the mothership, beam me up,
Oh,
Scotty.
yeah, the communicators.
Yeah, the
Yeah,
communicators. Yeah.
yeah. As a matter of fact, my first telephone flip phone was literally modeled after the Star Trek flip phones.
Yeah, but there's a
Yeah,
myriad. There's a myriad of things that were on that show.
yeah.
you know. And it reminds me of, because I don't know if you remember, you grew up in California. In New York, they had the Dick Tracy on the Sunday comics.
Oh yeah, yeah. I remember Dick Tracy with he had a wristwatch with a radio built into it.
Yeah, that he could talk into, and now
Yeah.
that's, it's funny. You wonder if that's the actual inspiration for these inventions, and it more than likely is.
Well, I think it is, and
Yeah.
the 1940s, 50s, and into the middle 60s was a realm in which science fiction was absolutely blossoming. That was called the golden age of science fiction.
Right.
And the stories were wonderful, but the stories were enormously influential in terms of inspiring people as to what the future could actually achieve.
Right.
And we have so very much of that. I'm doing a video link with you across the whole continent, and I've done this these videos with people in Europe as well. So that's pure science fiction. I
Yeah.
mean, that's something that we could have dreamed about when I was young.
Yes, I'm of the age where when you sit back and think about it, it's unbelievable that we're even talking and looking at each other
Well,
uh,
yeah, and then
across the continent,
and there are people living in space now, or at least residing for extended periods in space,
Yeah.
and that's going to continue and grow and grow and grow. Um, if you take a look at the costs of doing space travel the way Elon and Jeff Bezos are pursuing with the reusable rockets,
Yeah.
it won't be too many more years before it'll be as cheap to fly into orbit as it will be to fly across the country.
Yeah. I, maybe
And that,
maybe
that's not very far into the future.
maybe in our
Um,
lifetimes.
oh yeah, well, for people listening to what we're talking about today, they're going to be having the opportunity to do it themselves,
Mm,
and they're going to be able to do that without an without spending a lot of money going
right.
into space. They'll be able to afford it. Um, the world has really become a science fiction world, and you have to look at it from my perspective. I'm now 84 years old,
Mm,
so I was growing up fascinated by the world of the future as I visualized it from 1950s.
right.
The people that are around me today, if I go to the supermarket and I deal with the checkout people and all that sort of people, these are the people of the future from my perspective.
Right. Yeah.
You know, I'm surrounded by the people of the future.
I've told this story on this podcast before about my grandmother who died in 1985, and she lived to be 99 years old. She was born in
Wow.
1886. And I often, even when she was alive, I used to think about all the things she saw in her lifetime. And, two world wars and the Industrial Revolution pretty much and whatever.
Oh, just telephones.
And then yeah. But now I think, now that I'm 114 years old myself, Chet, I think about all the stuff that we've seen growing up just from the 60s till now. It's
Oh yeah.
yeah,
Yeah. No, this is there are periods in history that you read about in the history books, like the Renaissance in Florence
yeah,
and ancient Rome, during the Augustan period, um, and Periclean Athens. We're living through a period that exceeds any of those in terms of just being one of history's great, glorious periods.
sure, yeah,
We're really lucky to be in the most interesting period in all of human history,
yeah. I
and
mean,
we're right smack in the middle of it.
I remember when, like, I'm old enough to remember, like, Prodigy. Remember Prodigy and
Oh
those
yeah,
early internet things. It was miraculous back then. Things we take for granted today was a miracle back then.
absolutely.
You're
Well,
typing
I was a
something.
radio ham when I was a kid,
Hmm.
and to be able to get on the air and talk to somebody across the continent, or as I occasionally did on other continents, was a real thrill.
Yeah,
But today, anybody can do that. Just get
yeah.
on the internet.
And the younger generation. Well, first of all, I appreciate your time tonight. What I wanted to say was the younger generation takes for granted what you and I still look at as sort of kind of a miracle.
Yeah, it really is.
Yeah.
But as I say, these are the people of the future,
Hmm.
and the kids today are going to see the 21st century, 22nd century. They're going to see year 2100.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah.
And
I'm
we're in the 21st century. I keep forgetting that.
I know, but you gave me future shock. That's the kids today are going to see yeah,
They're going to see the 22nd century
sure. I mean,
and all the
that's
miracles that'll take place over the next 75 to 100 years.
yes, it's easy for me to forget it's 2026 as we're talking. I'm of the generation which thinks 1990 was 10 years ago, Chet.
Yeah, yeah, well,
But it's a good way to look at it, and what we're taking advantage of now, we're astounded by the fact that we're talking to each other live across the continent. Uh, that might be passé by the time young kids are the ages
well, you
we're
can
at
do
now.
that with your cell phone.
Yeah, sure, yeah,
You know, people
hmm
do that with their cell phones today.
yeah. But yeah, I'm just saying, I can imagine what 50 years from now, what the technologies will be.
Um, I think what happens is that technologies tend to stabilize,
Hmm.
and then they just become part of the culture. And they don't go. I mean, you pick up a telephone and call somebody. You don't think about what a miracle that was 100 years ago.
Yeah.
Uh, you know,
What's
and
your professional opinion about artificial intelligence, AI?
it's a tool.
Hmm.
It's not alive. It's not conscious. So don't be frightened by that. Basically, and by the way, I've done research in that area. A lot of my graduate school work was in that area. Basically, what it is it's a way of digging patterns of information out of a large amount of information. It finds, in a sense, that's very similar to what you as a human being you do when you're walking around and you're recognizing things. It's a machine for recognizing patterns and for collating those patterns and making them visible in a way that otherwise would be obscure. And it's a very powerful machine. I mean, I'm terribly impressed. One of the things that I find very fascinating is you can take a photograph from 200 years ago, almost 200 years ago, and you can bring the person alive.
Yeah.
They can smile, they can laugh,
Yeah.
they can talk to you. The AI is capable of simulating the life that was in the original person. And the perspective that I have is that's a bridge across time. So these people, instead of being, something that happened in the distant past, suddenly become living human beings,
Right.
people that you can relate to. And that's one of the gifts that AI is giving us. It's a way of digging information out. But like anything, it's a tool that can be abused. And
Yeah.
people are, I go do a lot of searches of YouTubes, and I would say at least 50% of the YouTubes that are out there that claim to be people talking about this and that are fakes.
Right. Right.
Somebody writes a script and they borrow somebody else's image and
Yeah.
they make it as if that person's really saying this stuff. And it's straight counterfeit stuff, and it's really subject to a lot of abuse.
Yeah. I had
So
this comment.
we don't have the laws at the present time to deal with that,
No.
but those laws will come, and there will be very severe penalties for that kind of counterfeiting.
Right. I heard it towards the end of 2025. Somebody very poignantly said the biggest commodity or the most in demand commodity in 2026 will be authenticity,
Yeah.
you know. So that's a kind of a good way to look at things as well.
Well, and the Hollywood actors are beside themselves because somebody can capture their face and make them do anything they want in a movie,
Yeah.
you know,
Yeah. I had an actor
which
on.
is good and bad. I mean, you've got, for example, if the studios want to take a license from the estates of an actor who's passed away, they can bring that actor alive again, and
Mhm.
the family can get the proceeds, the benefits of that. Um,
Yeah, I had
as
a
long as
conversation with an actor in a couple of months ago on this show, and we were talking about that very thing. And he was talking about because he's in the actors union, and he was
Yeah,
talking about licensing agreements or getting a license structure in place to deal with the artificial intelligence to that
absolutely.
to
And
that
you
to
know,
that end.
and this is a very powerful tool. I don't want to discount the importance of AI, but if you do a Google search for information, you're dealing with one of these AIs that's been around now for many years.
Sure, the
It's
results will come
exactly the
first.
same kind of machine.
Absolutely, yeah. So as you said it eloquently, it could be used for good or bad. I think in the aggregate, it'll be for the good.
Oh, ultimately, it'll be in the good. I mean, you can
Yeah,
be burned by fire, but God, we couldn't exist without fire. I mean,
right.
literally.
Yeah. That's a great way to look at it. So, Chet, I appreciate you letting me call you Chet. I like the name Chester though.
Well, thank you.
Yeah, it's especially when, as an author, Chester L. Richards, it has a good,
Well,
you
I
know,
got the name. I got the name from my dad. I'm a
uh-huh.
junior,
Hmm.
but he got the name from his uncle,
Yeah.
Chester Sales, and I knew Chester Sales when I was a youngster, and he was born around 1880, something like that.
Hmm.
So I knew him as an old man, but I got the storytelling from him. He
Yeah.
was a born storyteller. And apparently that means his father, my great grandfather, was a great storyteller, and I've got the gene.
Right. Well, I think the folks that are listening or watching us can tell that you're a master storyteller, and that lends itself to my recommendation to go out and buy the book. The Trek Continues, More Memoirs of a Rocket Scientist. And it's full of the stories that Chet was just talking about tonight. So we appreciate you coming
Oh,
on the show.
you have no idea what kind of thrills are in that book.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to reading it. I'm not, to be honest with you, I'm looking forward to reading both of them.
You should
So,
enjoy them.
yeah.
I hope you enjoy them.
And the link, it's on most of your online booksellers, Book Barnes and Noble, etc. But I'm going to put the link to the Amazon site and also ChesterLRichards.com, which gives you. Can you purchase the book from your website, or is it mainly
No,
Amazon?
that's something my publisher put together for me,
Okay, okay,
which has got little stories and all kinds of
yeah,
tidbits in there.
yeah.
Uh, I would ask anybody who reads the book uh, to write a review. I don't care
Right.
whether it's positive or negative. I've never gotten a negative, so I don't know how I would respond to that. But probably,
You
but
could you could write any review you want
you
as
can
long
write
as it's
any review you
positive.
want. You can write any review you want.
As long as it's positive, right?
Negatives get more attention than positives, as
Nah,
it
nah.
turns out.
No, I have a feeling my review is going to be a positive one because I could tell from if you write like the way you talk, I'm going to enjoy both books. So I'm looking forward to
Well,
reading.
I love the reviews. I've learned a lot from the reviews I've gotten in the first book.
Hmm.
It's well worth reading those reviews
Right.
because people are, you know, apparently I've touched some people, and the experience that I've had, the negative experience as well as the positive,
Yeah.
has really gotten to a number of people, and so I've been very, very pleased to find out how other people how they respond to what I've contributed to them.
Hmm. Well, that's
It's very gratifying to uplift another person. It really is.
yeah, yeah. All right. Well, I promise to leave a review on both books when I'm done reading them.
Very good.
All right. And I encourage
Thank you,
my
Tom. I
I
really appreciate what you
I
say.
appreciate you coming on the show. I really had fun listening to you. You are a good storyteller. So
Oh, thank you so much.
I wish you the best of luck with the book, and we'll see you further on or up the road. You did mention a third one coming, so maybe we'll have you back on when that comes out.
Hopefully.
I hope so, Chet. Thanks again for coming on.
Thank you. It's
Okay.
been a pleasure.